Payton Pritchard's minutes might not be what we thought they'd be. Plus, Sam Cassell's role in getting Jayson Tatum and Paul Pierce to work out. And should we be worried about Malcolm Brogdon's relationship with the Celtics? It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-Team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here in the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day, and I'm here for you every Monday through Friday with a free, fresh podcast drop directly to your device if you subscribe, so make sure you're smashing that subscribe button. Also on YouTube, get into that comment section. Let me know what you think about what I'm saying. Am I right? Am I wrong? Or general compliments are appreciated. I'm John Karalis. I used to play a long, long time ago. Now I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. And today we got a few things cooking in the hopper here. Later on, we'll talk about the Malcolm Brogdon situation, which is kind of floating around. It's not anything big, I don't think, yet, but it's out there. We'll talk about that. In the second segment, we'll talk about Sam Cassell and his role in getting Paul Pierce and Jayson Tatum working out. Some interesting comments there. And we'll start with more of the minutes discussion that we're having yesterday with Jay King, just a little bit kind of finishing that off because I don't think we got to the very, very end of that conversation. Today's show is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. So we're talking yesterday, Jay King and I, about some of the bigger picture minute stuff. Then I went out to Boston Sports Journal and kind of got a little bit deeper into the breakdown. So really, we start with 240 minutes, right? It's a 48-minute game, 5 players per team, 5 players on the team. They play 48 minutes. There's 240 minutes at the end of the game. You total up everybody's minutes, as long as it stays in regulation, you got yourself 240 minutes. So we talked about Tatum and Brown and White and Porzingis and Williams and Horford and Brogdon. And theoretically, even if we keep them conservative, so I worked with a number on Boston Sports Journal where we're able to keep Tatum and Brown to 34.5 and White at 32, Porzingis at 30, Williams at 28, Horford at 28, Brogdon at 26. Those are pretty good numbers all the way around. Everybody's kind of preserved with those numbers. There's 27 minutes left after all of those numbers. It's a 7-man rotation so far. And with all of those guys getting fairly low minutes in this assumption, because I'm betting maybe all or most of these guys average more per game than this, but I'm being conservative with the numbers for a reason, to make a point. That after all of that, there's 27 minutes left per game to hand out to Payton Pritchard, Luke Cornett, O'Shea Brissett, Shvi Mikhailuk, and that, Delano Banton if he makes the team. There are guys out there on the roster that are competing for 27 minutes. That's one good role player can get you almost all of those 27 minutes. Oh, Sam Hauser. Did I mention Sam Hauser? I didn't mention Sam Hauser. Sam Hauser getting 15 minutes a game is completely plausible. O'Shea Brissett, you didn't sign him to do nothing. Getting him to play 15 minutes a game, he's probably expecting more. He's probably expecting something in the 20s. Where does Payton Pritchard fit in this? We have spent the summer saying, hey, this Payton Pritchard's going to have a role, and he will have a role in the games where Malcolm Brogdon doesn't play. 67, he played 67 games last year. So that's 15 games right there that Pritchard might play a bunch or start or not start, but play a bunch. If any one of the other guys goes down, Tatum, Brown, if they take a night off, even one of the bigs, maybe you slide White over or Brogdon over a little bit more, and Pritchard picks up some of the slack of one of the guys who isn't playing. But this notion that Pritchard, just because Marcus Smart is gone, that Pritchard just slides on in and he gets himself 15 minutes a night. That's not a guarantee. 20 minutes a night. No, it's not guaranteed. Maybe he will. I'm not saying he won't. But when you look at these numbers, we know all of these guys are going to play. There's 7 players here. 5 of them will start. 2 of them will come off the bench. And then you need, as a contending team or just in the regular season, you need a 9 to 10 man rotation. So even if you keep it at 9, 2 guys of Pritchard, Hauser, Brissett, Mikhailuk, Cornette, 5 guys in that mix, 2 of them are competing for those minutes. It could be a case-by-case basis. It could be Hauser gets a good, gets in and is shooting well, and hey, Hauser gets a big chunk of the minutes. Maybe you can keep Tatum and Brown down to 32 minutes if Hauser and Brissett are are playing well. If Mikhailuk is playing well and hitting shots, maybe you just say, hey, let's keep Tatum on the bench an extra minute or 2. Let these guys roll a little bit. Let's lean on our depth. Totally fine to do that. But I'm challenging the notion that Pritchard is just guaranteed minutes. They played Smart, White, and Malcolm Brogdon all last year, 3 point guard rotation, because they had to, because all 3 of those guys deserve a lot of minutes. You're not necessarily in that position. In fact, now you've got one extra big who deserves a lot of minutes in Porzingis. So you have to play those 3 bigs, and you don't have to play 3 guards. There will be some overlap, but Malcolm Brogdon will play back. He'll be the backup point guard. We'll play some with Derek White together, but it very easily could be a straight Derek White's in, Brogdon is out. Brogdon comes in, Derek White is out. I would anticipate some overlap where they play together. Makes sense. White is very good on and off the ball. But Jayson Tatum is going to handle the ball. Jayson Tatum's going to initiate a ton of the offense this year. So even if you're going with, hey, let's take Derek White off the ball, then Tatum is going to come in and initiate the offense. Remember, one of the reasons why Marcus Smart was expendable to the Celtics is that the Celtics don't run a traditional point guard offense. They don't run an offense where the point guard sets them up and all the guys are working off the ball while a point guard sets everybody up. That's not what they do. Somebody starts the offense, and then it's hunting for mismatches or working, driving kicks, and trying to get shooters. And Payton Pritchard can certainly shoot, so he'll have his opportunity for sure. But I don't know that he's actually going to get all of the minutes, all of the opportunity that people sort of expect, because the dynamic is different. Playing 3 point guards is not necessarily Boston's strength. It's playing 3 bigs and finding all the minutes, all the ways that Rob and Al and Porzingis can play together, and finding that wing depth to get Tatum and Brown, which of Hauser and Brissett and Shvi Mikhailuk are going to help keep the Tatum and Brown minutes down. So just something to chew on. Something to chew on when you start breaking down the minutes. When you're at 240 minutes to distribute throughout the game, those start to disappear quickly. And they'll disappear more quickly when Tatum and Brown start playing more, and if White plays more than 32, and if Rob can get into the 30s, if Rob can get up to 30 minutes a game, that changes. Everything changes the dynamic a bit. So even if it's not Pritchard, somebody in this mix, Pritchard, Hauser, Brissett, Mikhailuk, they all have to anticipate DNPs. Those guys are all going to get DNPs at some point this season. So they all have to, unless Brissett, makes himself completely invaluable as part of the bench rotation, and he becomes the eighth person in that rotation, then he can take a bulk of those minutes. 27 minutes is not a lot, and a lot of people are competing for them. Just keep that in mind as we start to get towards the season. So Jayson Tatum has been spending a lot of time working out with Paul Pierce. It's something that we love to see. Sam Cassell played a role in that, and we'll figure out what that was next. First, today's show is brought to you by Jase Medical. Jase Medical gives you the Jase case, which provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All you got to do is fill out a simple form, and in some cases, you might just jump on a quick call with a board-certified physician. You can get ongoing care from the physicians, get treatment-related questions. It's doctor-created, doctor-recommended, right? What you get is a case of 5 life-saving antibiotics that you can use in a pinch. You're being prepared to protect yourself, to protect your family, because you never know what situation you're going to be in where you get a cut, something happens, and it goes worse than you think. And if you're not near a doctor, or if a doctor isn't available and you're not near some kind of urgent care or anything like that, you kind of have to take it upon yourself. Getting a Jase case is going to be a way that you can protect yourself, right? We know weather has been wild. People are outside they're in flooded basements, they're in flooded yards. You never know what kind of extreme circumstance you're going to be in where a Jase case with their 5 life-saving antibiotics can come in handy. You can save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical. Plus, you get an additional $20 off using the code LOCKEDON at checkout. Go to jasemedical.com. JASE medical.com. It's very simple. You want to protect yourself. You want to protect your family. You want to be prepared in case of a worst case scenario. The deal is pretty good. You get an additional $20 off using Locked On at Jase Medical, JASE medical.com. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Head on over to Locked On NBA. I hosted it. I had Tony East from the Locked On Pacers podcast. We talked a little Brogdon. We talked about what ifs with James Harden. I almost forgetting names. Damian Lillard. What if those guys don't get traded? We talked about those on the Locked On NBA podcast. So go check that out wherever you get your podcasts. Back to this podcast. Tatum and Pierce worked out a bunch, and Paul Pierce on his podcast with Kevin Garnett, which is always fun, talked about that, talked about Sam Cassell. Immediately, Sam Cassell is making an impact. Sam played with Pierce, was around Pierce with the LA Clippers. He obviously knows Paul. Now he's here in Boston coaching Jayson Tatum. I think, and what Pierce said was, I went with Sam to watch his workout. So Sam kind of started it with that whole thing. Me and him, I'm just here for support, and it's getting me back in shape, which I can appreciate, man. Get yourself back in shape. If anybody wants to set me up with any of the Celtics to get myself back in shape, I'm willing to take that. Just putting it out there. I'm sure the people who know me are going to say, we're not putting in that much work for you, buddy. So it's a lot of work, frankly. But good for Pierce, good for Tatum, good for Sam Cassell. And I don't think Sam Cassell did this for no reason, right? I don't think he brought Paul Pierce to Jayson Tatum just on a whim, just to say, hey, Paul, you want to have some fun? Let's go watch Jayson Tatum work out. No way. That's a calculated move. That's Sam Cassell saying, I got to get Tatum in the lab with his closest comp in Celtics history. That Tatum is a Paul Pierce type. They don't have exactly the same game, but that's the closest that you're going to find. And it's a very recent NBA player, a guy who understands the money and the fame and the, what Boston needs. And Pierce has been around, obviously. It's not like he and Tatum have never talked, but getting them in a workout situation, getting them together in the gym, that's a stroke of genius. And kudos to Sam Cassell for finding that opportunity to get them together and to get Tatum with a guy who Pierce went a long time before getting his title. And I think part of the conversation between Pierce and Tatum privately has to be, hey man, appreciate this opportunity. You're one of the lucky ones. For all of our consternation, for all of our, worrying and just being upset about they've had all of these opportunities and they haven't cashed in on any of these opportunities. For all of that, we really have to understand how fortunate a guy like Tatum is to consistently go to the conference finals and get an NBA finals trip throughout these formative years of his career. I'm sure Pierce is looking at him like, do you understand how lucky you are? Do you understand how amazing it is to, at your age, to just walk into success? Look around the league, man. Look at how many stars are dying to get into a situation. My Locked On NBA podcast is all about Damian Lillard and James Harden, and Lillard especially. Lillard was loyal to a fault, and now it's getting ugly because he's like, oh crap, I'm almost out of time. I got to find myself a ring. I got to find myself a championship situation. And you don't want Tatum to take anything for granted or to not appreciate this. And I don't think he does. But man, getting in there with Paul Pierce and having Pierce in your ear saying, do you understand? Do you understand, first of all, how good you have it? And secondly, do you understand what kind of a legend you will be when you win a championship in Boston? And if you bring more than one, God level status. You bring multiple championships to Boston. You talk about Tatum on a Mount Rushmore. You get chiseled into that Mount Rushmore very quickly, and it'd be very difficult to get him off that thing, right? Because Mount Rushmore right now is Bill Russell, Larry Bird, and John Havlicek, and I think the fourth one is between, if you want to go old school, Bob Cousy, or Paul Pierce, or Sam Jones. I'm always going to make the case for Sam Jones. But Cousy was the league's first true kind of like showman superstar. Pierce is the best scorer, one of the best scorers the team has ever seen. And so to have Tatum can overtake those guys. But to have Pierce in Tatum's ear, have Sam Cassell initiate that, it's all part of the mentality. Tony Allen had a good element to that about Paul Pierce, saying, what does Pierce need? He says that seek and destroy mentality. He says, I ain't saying Tatum don't got it, but Pierce working out with him, I think that's good insight. For Tony Allen to bring up seek and destroy mentality, and I know he caught himself and said, I ain't saying Tatum don't got it, but I think everybody understands that there's another level. I think there are multiple. I think there's 2 more levels for him to get to. There's another scoring level for sure for him to get to. He can get to, as I made the case last week, he can get to 34 points per game. Easy. He averaged 30. You just bump up that 3-point percentage a little bit. You take a couple of those 3-point attempts away. You get a little bit more efficient from 3. You add one more layup and you add one more free throw. That's it. You get yourself to 34 points in a hurry without much change to anything in this game. So there's definitely a scoring level that he can reach, and there's definitely a mentality level that he can reach. I know that he's there. I know that he can do it. There's much more that Tatum can do. This is not the fully realized Jayson Tatum. But I think Sam Cassell, getting him and Pierce together, is a brilliant move and something that could really pay off. The Sam Cassell hiring already paying dividends. He hasn't coached a minute on the sidelines with Joe Mazzulla. I want to see if Sam Cassell can help the Malcolm Brogdon situation. The Malcolm Brogdon situation, again, has been floating around. We'll discuss that in just a second. First, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Our friends at FanDuel are the #1 sports book in America. And you know what? It's NFL time. It's football time. And there's nothing like betting on football. People love to bet on football. Sundays are made for betting. You get Patriots game on one TV, or you can go sit at a sports bar and have all the games on all the TVs. And you can sit there on your FanDuel app and just kind of be like, oh, no problem. I will bet on this prop. I will bet on, let's see, Mac Jones TDs. Let's see, Ezekiel Elliott yards over under. You can bet on all of that stuff. If you're a new customer, all you got to do is put down $5. You get 200 in bonus bets. So that's a hell of a deal. That if you weren't sure about getting in on FanDuel and you want to bet a few bucks, all you got to do is bet 5. You get 200 bonus bets. Win or lose, doesn't matter. Just got to make the bet. So you've been thinking about it, do it now. The app, incredibly easy to use. FanDuel.com/LockedOn is the website. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Just ask you if you're going to do it. Please gamble responsibly. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Would love to have you here every one of those days. Become an everydayer. Take me with you to work or getting ready for work or to school. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're getting this show directly to your device 5 days a week. Watch the show on YouTube. Would love to have you here. I love the comment section, people getting in there. I love it when threads pop up and people are responding to one another. You can make the Locked On Celtics YouTube page part of your community, a place where Celtics fans can get together and talk about things. So please hop on in. Let's continue this. Let's wrap up with our final segment about Malcolm Brogdon. I talked about this on the Locked On NBA podcast. I figure I want to add to it a little bit here. You can go listen to the Locked On NBA and kind of get that take there. Kind of works in association with this one. But basically, Gary Washburn said recently, he was on a podcast, and he said he's concerned. He's concerned about Malcolm Brogdon, and last we heard, he was upset. We know that. We talked to Joe Mazzulla. All of us were at the Jaylen Brown contract signing. Joe Mazzulla was there to support Jaylen Brown, and Mazzulla talked, and he basically said, in not so many words, paraphrasing, that they're going to have to work on that relationship with Malcolm Brogdon. And we haven't heard from Malcolm Brogdon. And, Brogdon spends a lot of time in Africa in his off seasons. He's not exactly very visible. He's not a big Instagram. I don't think he's a big social media guy. He's working on charitable endeavors in Africa, which is very important to him. And that's great. So we don't know. we don't know how upset he might be. There is the potential, and Chris Mannix said on Sports Illustrated, answering a Q&A, said there have been rumblings for months that Brogdon wasn't happy with the near trade. Washburn even suggested that Brogdon could have decided against surgery as a form of protest. And that's something to worry. It's like the old Scottie Pippen move. Did he decide against surgery, and then will he get surgery in the preseason to miss time? And, it's, I don't want to, this is pure speculation. I'm not saying he's going to do it. I'm not saying he will or won't, but I'm saying it's possible. Again, it's the Scottie Pippen move. It's the I'm pissed at you. Watch me kind of screw you now by coming back, going through the preseason, saying, oh, you know what? The elbow's not right. I am going to need surgery. I'm going to miss 4 months, and that's going to take me past the All-Star break, past the trade deadline, and put the Celtics in a bad position. If he does that, then we know he's been pissed. I don't think that's where it's going to go. I don't think the surgery protest thing, I don't think that's where we are. I'd like to think that Brogdon isn't of that mindset. I'd like to think that Brogdon understands. And it's tough because Malcolm chose Boston. He was presented by the Indiana Pacers a few scenarios, and he said, I chose Boston. And the tough part here is the Celtics didn't want to trade him. The Celtics didn't want to make a move and say, hey, Malcolm's out. Now they probably saw an opportunity to get Kristaps Porzingis and make a tough decision, but I think part of the reason why the Celtics were willing to make this trade is the $22 million and the second apron of the new collective bargaining agreement. And I think that's part of the problem. The collective bargaining agreement this season and going into next season is going to be especially restrictive. Once you get to July 1, teams over the apron are screwed. It's going to be hard for them to make deals. And as Tony East suggested on Locked On NBA, that's going to make the postseason pre-July 1st stretch, while they're still under the old calendar year, extraordinarily interesting and possibly very busy as teams try to make their flurry of deals before all of the second apron rules kick in. But Brogdon, this is very likely his last year in Boston regardless, because that $22 million is a big chunk and it needs to go for the Celtics to stay under the second apron. They don't want to operate above the second apron next year, and it's going to be extraordinarily difficult. The window is very, 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 very small here for Boston to operate as an expensive team before they have to make some even tougher decisions. So Brogdon he has to know. He's a very astute young man, and he has to know. They tried to trade me now. The CBA is what it is. You were part of the crew that helped negotiate it, Brogdon. This is an opportunity. This is where the Celtics are, right? This is their lot in life. And you have to understand that this is it. This is probably your final year because the contract gets too expensive and the second apron comes into play. How is that going to impact his relationship in Boston? How is that going to impact his attitude? I mean, Brogdon is a pro. He is a pro. He is a, pretty astute guy, and he knows that he has to play well so he can continue on and get another big contract, all of that stuff. So I don't think he's going to sabotage anything. I don't think he's the type of player to do it. But I also am not going to crap all over the speculation because he is pissed. Joe Mazzulla could have said anything that day, and he acknowledged straight up, yeah, this is going to take some, it's going to take some work. So hopefully that work has been accomplished. Sam Cassell could be a very important voice in Malcolm Brogdon's ear. He could be a very important person here in helping assuage Brogdon's anger and, hurt feelings and get him back to wherever he needs to be. It's also entirely possible Brogdon walks in and is like, yeah, I was pissed, but I'm fine now. And end of story. That's it. Media day is in a week and a half, and he's going to sit there and we're going to ask him directly. And he could simply say, I was pissed. I think anybody anybody rightly would be, but it is what it is. The business is what it is. And at the end of the day, I'm here. I'm part of the Boston Celtics, and my goal is to win a championship. That's it. That could be and if I'm going to put odds on anything, that's where I'm putting my money. If I'm opening up the FanDuel app, that's where I'm putting my money. So I'm not sitting here saying all of this as oh my God, I'm so afraid. But I'm also saying we can't be dismissive of this kind of talk. This is generally, I am dismissive of some of this kind of, talk of this ilk, but this one is legit. This one is legit. So we'll see. We'll see. Thank you so much for being part of the show here. Thank you. I really do appreciate you tuning in. We're back to the daily grind. So there's a lot here. Shows Monday through Friday. And Media Day, when Media Day is here, that's going to be a fun podcast. I'll have some of the things that the guy said. I'll probably get into one of the Brogdon. Brogdon's going to be one of the big stories. So I'll probably play his actual quote when he, answers that question for you here. So make sure you are subscribed. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. Ring the bell, get notified when I drop a new video. And I would love it if you everydayers share the podcast. Spread the word. Tell your friends. Tell everybody at work. Tell everybody at school. Hey, do you want to listen to some cool Celtics talk? You should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.